Hello everybody, I'm the Dependent Fanatic. Welcome SEC fans. I'm going to go over your schedules here in this video. We did our part to beat Ohio State last year. The SEC in football, not so much. In basketball, you're tearing it up right now, and my Michigan Wolverines lost to in-state rivals. Heated rivals, Michigan State. I had a video on that if you are new. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. I'll put it in the card. And also, if you've been here and haven't watched that video, go check it out. I'm the Dependent Fanatic here, always here. The weekend is busy as hell, but I have time for SEC schedules for all of you. I have the Michigan Sports Report coming out. College basketball resume rankings are coming out here tomorrow. So this is the only time I think I have to talk about the strength of schedules for the SEC. And I will compare it to the Big Ten. I've already done the Big Ten schedules and ranked them from easiest to hardest in a video that you can go check out as well. The easiest schedule in the SEC is Missouri's. I have their entire schedule here, which is something I didn't do in the Big Ten video, but they have Central Arkansas, Kansas, ULL, who is Louisiana, South Carolina, Massachusetts, Alabama, all at home with a bye week in between before Alabama. That is their first 6 games, all at home. They have Auburn at Auburn on the 18th of October. Then they go to Vanderbilt. They have bye week. Everyone has 2 bye weeks again this season because of how the calendar falls. I think you could just easily take that out, and that's what they're going to do, and add an extra playoff game, right? So that's what they're going to do. Or I've heard this talk about the conferences doing tournaments. This is not basketball. This is football. Come on, let them play the good teams. Let the good teams play the good teams more, because we only have a limited calendar for football here. After Missouri's bye, sorry, that was a little minor rant. Mississippi State and Texas A&M at home. And then they're at Oklahoma and at Arkansas to end the season. Their opponents in the SEC from last season went 53-49, a 52% win percentage. That is better than the Big Ten's weakest win percentage, which was 46%. And if you watch that video, you know it's Michigan's that has the easiest schedule in the Big Ten. Missouri has the easiest schedule in the SEC. The second easiest schedule is Tennessee. Their opponents went 54-49 last year as well, 52%. Tennessee has 5 winning SEC teams as well: Georgia, Arkansas, Alabama, Florida, and Vanderbilt. Syracuse is a better non-conference opponent, I would think, than Kansas is for Missouri. But that really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of who goes to the conference championship or who is the higher ranked team. It does come down to the higher ranked team. It comes down to the playoff selection committee and them valuing your non-conference opponents. And you would think that the SEC needs more of these than the Big Ten, because the Big Ten plays 9 conference games. The SEC plays 8 conference games. But we'll find out what I think here in the end of this video. But that is a pretty tough schedule. All of SEC teams' schedules are tough, just like all of the Big Ten teams' schedules are tough compared to the other conferences. I'll do the ACC and the Big 12 um, in their own videos based on just, I believe that they should still be a part of everything, but these are guaranteed the two best conferences going forward, and it's not even close. So the third easiest schedule in the SEC is Texas's. SEC opponents for Texas last year went 54-49 as well, so 52% for them too. They played 5 winning teams in the SEC this year: Florida, Vanderbilt, Georgia, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. Texas is at Ohio State in the non-conference. They have Syracuse. I know that's Tennessee. They have San Jose State is probably their next toughest opponent in the non-conference. But 52% in conference from last year is damn good. Plus Ohio State on the road. All right, the fourth easiest schedule. Yeah, that was tough, right? The fourth easiest schedule, Mississippi. Their SEC opponents went 56-47 in totality, 54% winning percentage. 5 SEC teams they play had a winning record last year: Arkansas, LSU, Georgia, and South Carolina, and Florida. Mississippi plays Washington State, and is Tulane a good non-conference opponent? We'll see. The fifth easiest schedule in the SEC belongs to Georgia. Their SEC opponents went 61-43 last year, a 59%, so a huge jump from 54%. Still 5 winning teams that they play, but they are better: Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, and Texas. Georgia's best non-con this year is Georgia Tech, though. That's always the case. Usually Georgia plays someone else to go with Georgia Tech, but not this season. So they have the fifth easiest schedule. Number 6, Auburn. Their SEC opponents went 62-42, a 60% win percentage. 6 winning SEC teams, so we're moving up in that category. They play Texas A&M, Georgia, Missouri, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Alabama. Baylor is their one non-conference opponent. South Alabama is okay too. We'll see what they turn out to be this season. But Auburn has the 6th easiest schedule in the SEC. Number 7, Texas A&M. They had a 60% win percentage as well for their opponents. Texas A&M plays 6 winning SEC teams: Florida, Arkansas, LSU, Missouri, South Carolina, and Texas. Texas A&M also has Notre Dame in South Bend this year in the non-conference. So the non-conference games are still important because it shows which conference is better. That's the only non-denominator between the SEC and the Big Ten. Who did you play in the non-conference, and did you beat them? What was your record in the non-conference as a conference? See what I'm saying? And if the SEC can go on a tear here, these are hard schedules. Texas A&M versus Notre Dame in South Bend is going to be a huge game this season. The 8th easiest schedule, South Carolina. Their SEC opponents went 61% last year, 63-40. 6 winning teams in the SEC they play: Vanderbilt, Missouri, LSU, Alabama, Mississippi, and Texas A&M. South Carolina has Virginia Tech in this year's non-conference, along with the traditional Clemson that is always great. The 8th hardest schedule. All right, and we're going to get to, well, here we go. So the SEC has 16 teams. Then we're the 8 easiest schedules. Now we're going from number 8 to number 1 hardest schedules in the SEC. LSU has the 8th hardest. Their opponents went 62% last season. They play 7 of 8 SEC teams that had a winning record last season. Florida, Mississippi, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, Alabama, and Arkansas. LSU also plays Clemson in the non-conference. That's tough. So, does playing 9 conference games really matter? We'll get to that. The 7th hardest schedule, Florida. The SEC opponents went 63%. Only 6 winning records for their opponents from last year in the SEC, but 4 of them were 10-win teams. The 6 they played, LSU, Texas, Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Tennessee. Florida also plays Miami and Florida State in the non-conference, so that is harder. Now we're at number 6. The 6th hardest schedule in the SEC is Arkansas. Their opponents went 64% last year. Their upcoming SEC opponents went 64% in their whole entire seasons last year. Again, only 6 winning SEC teams, but 4 10-win teams. Mississippi, Tennessee, Texas A&M, LSU, Texas, and Missouri are on the docket in the SEC for Arkansas. Arkansas is at Memphis for some reason. And I always scratch my head. The ACC does this too, where they go to lower teams. They play on the road. Michigan State did this at Central Michigan and lost one time. I don't understand why that happens, but Arkansas is going to Memphis in the non-conference and has Notre Dame as well. The 5th hardest schedule in the SEC belongs to Alabama. Their SEC opponents went 67-37 last year, 64% winning percentage. 6 winning teams out of the 8. Georgia, Vanderbilt, Missouri, Tennessee, South Carolina, and LSU. They do not play Mississippi or Auburn, who was the 2 worst teams in the SEC last season. Alabama has Florida State, and they are, I think they're at Wisconsin in the non-conference. No, they have Wisconsin at home. They went there and beat the shit out of them last year. Yes. So, the 4th hardest schedule in the SEC is Vanderbilt's. Their SEC opponents went 69-33, 66% last season. 6 winning teams, and all 6 had 9+ wins. South Carolina, Alabama, LSU, Missouri, Texas, and Tennessee. Virginia Tech is their non-conference opponent, so that's kind of weak, but the strength of their conference schedule is lights out. It's amazing. The 3rd hardest schedule belongs to Kentucky, one of the worst teams from last season in the SEC. And they can't play themselves, so that kind of makes a little bit of sense. But their SEC opponents went 73-34 last season, which is a 68% win percentage. Kentucky plays 7 of 8 winning teams this season in their SEC schedule. Mississippi, South Carolina, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Florida, and Vanderbilt. Kentucky is also at LSU this year in their annual rivalry in-state in the non-conference. The second hardest schedule in the SEC belongs to Oklahoma. Their SEC opponents went 75-31 last year, 71%. 7 winning SEC teams are on their schedule. All of them went 9+ wins last year. Texas, South Carolina, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, and LSU. They also have Auburn, who is not the worst SEC team with a 5-7 record from last year. So their SEC schedule is daunting. They also play Michigan in the non-conference, and they're going to be a whole lot better than they were last year, promise you. The toughest SEC schedule belongs to Mississippi State, the worst team last season. I believe they went 2-10. They play 8 out of 8 winning teams in the SEC, including 5 10+ win SEC teams and 7 8+ win SEC teams. Tennessee, Texas A&M, Florida, Texas, Arkansas, Georgia, Missouri, and Ole Miss is on the docket for Mississippi State. So Oklahoma's SEC opponents went 77-31 last year. That is a 71%. Better than the Big Ten 68%. On top of that, Mississippi State plays Arizona State in the non-conference. So the Big Ten schedule video, I said I would talk about schedule differences and the 8 games for the SEC, 9 games for the Big Ten. I think it evens out in the end. The SEC's toughest schedule was Mississippi State with 71% opponent win percentage in the SEC. The Big Ten's was 68%, and that was Wisconsin. Does an extra Maryland on the schedule make the Big Ten that much tougher? Or, to Wisconsin's credit, though, they scheduled Alabama. That's just an example. For that 10th big opponent. Whereas Mississippi State only has 9 big opponents because of Arizona State being their only non-conference. See, they play 8 conference games. Arizona State's their 9th. The thing is that people don't like the FCS late in the season. That's what I hear from Big Ten people all the time is, why are you doing warm-ups versus your rivals? Well, not all schedules have that anymore. They're moving away from that. If they do, they have a 10th opponent that is pretty good on their schedule. They meet that threshold. As far as the easiest schedules for the 2 conferences, it was Michigan for the Big Ten and Missouri for the SEC. Missouri's was 52%. They play Kansas in the non-conference. Michigan's was 46%. The 9 conference opponents that Michigan played, their records for the entire season were 46%. That's not just in the Big Ten, that's non-conference as well. That is why, if I was the SEC, I wouldn't go to 9 teams either. They play Oklahoma, Michigan does in the non-conference, but Nebraska, Wisconsin, USC, Washington, Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, Maryland were all 7-win teams last season. So does 9 conference games really matter for everybody? I don't think so. I think it all will even out, and whoever you play and what your record is will determine who goes to the 12-team playoff, because we're going to have 12 again. So all of Michigan's opponents were 7 wins or less. So if I was the SEC, just stick with your model, and I think it will pan out. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please like the video, share, subscribe out there, and I gotta say, go blue. It is the Dependent Fanatic channel. I am a Michigan fan, so say go blue, but the SEC knows what they're doing in football schedules and in college basketball lately.